did. There we go. Admit. Admit. There we go. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Silvana, how are you? Coming to you
Hi, Pam.
from the UP. Hey, Greg. Hey, Kelly, how are you? We'll get this show on the road.
We're doing great. How are you?
Yeah.
How is it up there?
You know what? I'm a little moist up here. There's been some rain, more than I think I've ever seen up here in terms of the river height. Now, last week, I think I showed a couple of pictures of where our cabin is, my cousin's cabin up on the Menominee River. So just to give you a sort of an idea, we are in the southeastern part of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So that's where the Menominee River is what forms the border between Wisconsin and Michigan. As far as latitude goes, we're actually a little bit south of, some of you might go up to like Eagle River and places like that in Wisconsin. That would actually be further north and further west. So this is kind of southern UP, but it's still the UP, and it's pretty awesome. I've been taking pictures and videos while I've been up here, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show those. Those might have to wait for show and tell next week. They are on my phone, and they're backing up to my Google account. That's the other awesome thing about being up here. I haven't had cell service since Saturday. So no cell phone going off on me, no internet. I'm not checking emails. It's been really, really fantastic. I'm here now. I'm actually at the home of my cousin and her husband, Chris and Sue Mao. They live in town, which would be Stevenson, Michigan. Stevenson is, how many people live in Stevenson? About 1,200? 1,000?
Maybe 4,000.
4,000. Oh, all right. Way bigger.
Maybe.
That's all the surrounding environs. But it's really great up here. It's a different pace. You know, when I was driving over here, so the cabin is on the Menominee River, and like you said, Chris and Sue live in Stevenson, on a farm actually, just outside of town. I got to meet their horses a little bit before we came in to do the program. But driving over here, I counted 2 cars and a dump truck as far as people traffic, and 4 deer. So the deer actually outnumbered the vehicle traffic on the road on the way out here. But we haven't had a chance to do any fishing because of all the high water. Did take a drive around to kind of do some reconnaissance when I got up here on Sunday. And today I've been joined by a couple of friends, my friend Jesse and my friend Bonnie, and they both bring different qualities to this trip. Jesse's an aquatic ecologist, and Bonnie is a botanist. So we went out today, and now we're being joined by Oliver. This is my cousin's golden retriever. Tech support puppy is actually here too, but he's in his crate, so he won't be joining the show tonight. Hey, Allie, why don't you, can you sit down? Oh, thank you. I wanted to show you, though, some really cool things we've been coming across with all the rain. For one thing, the mushrooms here have just been phenomenal. We've been seeing some edibles, some big puffballs, and some chicken of the woods. We've been seeing a lot of inedible mushrooms, but you know, when you get into the fall fungus season, we talked about jack-o'-lantern fungus a week or two ago. You just add the classic recipe of just add water. Those spores get moist and they just start popping up all over the forest floor. Along with all the fungi we're seeing right now, we're also seeing a lot of cool lichens. And lichens are something, you probably will recognize lichens when I show you this. This is a bit of bark that was laying at the base of a tree. And lichens are kind of a cool, we have them certainly all around, well, they grow everywhere. They grow all around the world. But, you know, in Illinois, we have a few certain types that we see. Lichens can actually be used as a measurement of air quality. The more types of lichens you see and the more robust sorts of lichens you see, generally speaking, the more, the better your air quality is. So up here, well, and actually a little bit about lichens. You can remember what a lichen is if you can remember the little story that Freddie Fungus took a lichen to Alice Algae, and they lived together happily ever after. A lichen is actually a combination of algae and fungus, and it can grow in a lot of different ways. This is what we would call a foliose lichen. See how it looks? Folio means like a page or a leaf. And these lichens, the green part there, that's the algae. The algae actually supplies the food for the lichen because it has chlorophyll and it can photosynthesize. And then the fungus is the part that kind of supplies the space, the living space and the shelter for the algae to grow. So the two of them together combine to form this really cool group of living organisms called the lichen. So this is a foliose lichen because it looks kind of like leaves. We've got one here that's a crustose type of lichen. And again, I'm not talking about species here or even families. Lichens are kind of very, very specific sorts of things you need to know. A lot of times you have to use a reagent like Drano or bleach in order to have the lichen show a color, test color that will tell you the species or even the genus or the family. This lichen, you can see, is kind of crusty looking. Let me see if I can get a little better light on it here. So a crustose lichen looks, it's very smooth and flat, and then a little bumpy here on the ends. It's basically, actually here, I can add my own light. There we go. See how that's like kind of crusty looking? So the, again, the algae is supplying the green color, and the fungus is supplying the structure for the organism. We've got this stuff here. This is a type of lichen that's known as reindeer moss. Now this is something we don't usually see where we live in Illinois. It seems to grow better in northern latitudes. We found this morning during our walk. You might recognize it too if any of you are model railroad enthusiasts. Sometimes a reindeer moss is likened, it's likened to looking like the foliage on a tree. And you in model railroading, you buy these little trees, to make your setup look more realistic. It's all dyed reindeer moss. Now, reindeer moss, the term is a little confusing. Mosses are different types of organisms from lichens. They don't have the algae and fungus components to them. But this is a type of lichen here. So it was really fun this morning to kind of, be exploring and not having to be on any kind of a schedule. We're not, having to hurry up because we've got to get to a meeting or get to a program. We were able to take about 3 or 4 hours to walk what amounted to about 3 miles. So we were doing less than a mile an hour, just really kind of moving along and taking in all these, the sights and also the sounds. I'll get to that in just a little bit. I mentioned my friend Bonnie is a botanist, and this was a plant I knew. I've been coming up here to the UP ever since I was just a little kid. My Uncle Hubie and Aunt Ginny built a cabin. So when did the cabin get built? late 50s?
57, I think.
1957 was when the cabin on the Menominee River was built. And this was a plant that we used to see all the time. And I tell you, they talk about how smell memories are some of the strongest. When I smell this plant, I know that I am up in the UP. This is a plant called sweet fern. And I remember it being shown to me as a little kid, and it was supposed to be real good for taking the itch out of bug bites. You could rub it on your skin, take the itch away, and as a special bonus, then you get to smell like sweet fern too. But it's, Bonnie was very excited to see this. This was a plant that she was thinking of adding. She's not sure how it's going to do. She's doing a plant installation in Kendall County. And she's been reading about all the neat growth qualities of sweet fern, and getting to see it in one of its natural habitats here got her real excited about incorporating it into the sandy soil of the site that she's designing in Kendall County. So yeah, up here it is really, really sandy. The rocks up here are quite different. By us, we've got a lot of sedimentary rock, dolomitic limestone is pretty much what our bedrock is there. Well, up here it's granite. Down in Illinois, when we see a big hunk of granite, we call that a glacial erratic, which means it was dragged down to Illinois back during our last ice age. And as the glaciers melted and started to recede and go away, these big chunks of granite would fall off and land in various spots. So if you see a big chunk of granite in Illinois, you can think of, folks up here in the UP, because that's probably where that piece of rock started. Let's see, what else did I bring? So another plant that just immediately connects me with this area, even though it does grow in Illinois, I'm going to see if I can hold this so you can see it. This is a plant, the common name is scouring rush, and it's in the genus Equisetum, which is a very, very ancient group of plants. Let me see if I can show this. See how this plant has these joints on the stem? You can pull these apart like that. This plant is, as I'm feeling it, I'm going to see if I can make this sound. You hear that? This plant, as I'm holding it, it's really rough in my hand, and it's actually, could almost kind of file my fingers with it. There's little tiny bits of silica in this plant, hence its common name of scouring rush. So back in the day, when people would be traveling westward, and they had as many possessions as they could carry with them, they would still find there was things they missed, some of the comforts of home. One of those things would be a pot scrubber. And a scouring rush, because of this coarse nature of the stems, again, so that's pretty rough, and it's got the grit from the silica. You could take a handful of these scouring rushes, and you could use them to scrub your pans with. So scouring rush has a long connection going back to the times when the European settlers were settled. Who knows, the Native Americans may have used it for scouring as well. Now, it has a close relative called horsetail. And I'm going to hold these up. These were actually knocked over. They were right by the mailboxes where the cabin is. You can see by looking at this plant how it gets its common name, horsetail. And then if we look really closely, you're going to see that it has the same segmented joints, segmented growth habit on its stem as we saw with the scouring rush. This plant is also pretty coarse feeling. Like, I bet if I rubbed real hard here, I could almost abrade my finger a little bit, get kind of a cut from the roughness of this stem. Now, again, this is not a UP exclusive. We do have Equisetum and horsetails in Illinois. They tend to grow where it's kind of moist and kind of sandy. And we don't have that all over northern Illinois. There's only certain spots where this will grow. But around here, this is really common. We see big stands of both the scouring rush and the horsetails as we're out walking around. Very cool plants. Now, every time I've gone out, and like I said, it's been raining a lot. I think I've still got my raincoat on, I got my rain hat on. And despite all the weather, we've been hearing all kinds of cool things. And the first sound I heard, I couldn't quite place. It's not something we have in Illinois. And I'm going to see if I can replicate it here. Rah, 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 rah. So it kind of sounds like a crow, doesn't it? Well, my best imitation of a sort. It's kind of got a crow-like sound, but I tell you, in my brain, when I first heard this sound, I kept thinking great blue heron. And maybe if you've heard a great blue heron, taking off, they make that kind of croaking sound. Rah, rah. Well, only this sound was not coming from the water. It was not by the river. It wasn't by the little creek across the river. I was like, what in the world is a great blue heron doing, calling out in the, out in the forest? I couldn't put those pictures together. And then I got my eyes on the bird, and it was a raven. So there are ravens up in the UP. Don't have ravens in Northern Illinois. Now, last winter, the birding community got kind of excited because ravens were spotted in Northern Indiana. But I've had people send me pictures. I've had people send me emails swearing that they've seen ravens in Northern Illinois, but they're super, super rare, like not likely, probably not really a raven that was being seen, probably just a large crow. Both of the times that people have mentioned ravens to me, thinking they've seen ravens, it's been wintertime. Birds, one of the ways they keep themselves warm is they fluff their feathers up, and it makes them look really big. So a crow that's fluffed up to stay warm in the wintertime can look a little bit like a raven, but a raven's got a knob up on the top of its bill. And so I was finally able to figure out what that sound that I've been hearing that I couldn't quite place. The ravens have been flying back and forth. Everything up here is getting ready for winter. Another animal that I've been hearing a lot of is connected to these things here. So around the cabin, there's several oak trees. And to tell you the truth, I have not been able to figure out exactly the type of oak that we have here. It's in the red oak group of oaks. And the way we know that, here's a leaf from the oak tree. And remember when we talked about galls last week, we've got some cool galls here, and I'm not even going to attempt to figure out what made these. I'm going to guess it was maybe another type of gall wasp, but I want to say oak button gall, but that's just a guess. But when oak trees can be divided into kind of two different broad groups, and then you can take them down into genus and species. But there's the white oak group and the red oak group. And the red oak group has pointy lobes. So see how these are pointed? You remember the red oaks are pointy because what happens if you stick a point in your finger and you break the skin, it bleeds. So pointy are the red oaks. This is this seems to be the same species throughout the area. As far as the red oaks go, there were a few bur oaks that I saw up here as well. Those are in the white oak family. They have rounded lobes, and they are. There was, and I don't tell you the truth, I don't know if this is politically correct anymore. Another way to remember this was the pointed arrows of the red natives, and then the rounded bullets of the white settlers. That's another way to keep the two groups straight. So white oaks, rounded lobes, red oaks, pointed lobes. But anyway, so these oaks are having a really good year. You can't walk around outside without stepping on these acorns. And up here we've got gray squirrels, and there are, of course, chipmunks for the ground squirrels. And then there are also the little tiny red squirrels. And they're doing their part to eat as many acorns as they possibly can and bury as many acorns as they possibly can. The chipmunks are taking the acorns down into the ground where they'll feed on them throughout the winter. But the sound I keep hearing over and over again, and the birds, the animal that seems to be making the most use of these is the blue jay. Blue jays have this wonderful adaptation. They actually are the #1 dispersal animal for acorns. These acorns can fit, the blue jay's got a pretty big bill. The blue jay's a pretty big bird. They're bigger than robins. And they've got a big gullet. And they've also got another adaptation here on their throat that's called the gular pouch. And they can pack that with food items, a lot of nuts and a lot of acorns, and they can fly those acorns quite a distance away. Squirrels, they'll disperse some acorn. You know, when a plant like an oak tree makes its seeds, it's not doing that to feed us and to feed animals. It's doing that to continue its species. And its best hope for survival is to get these seeds as far away from itself as possible. So when an animal like a blue jay comes along and they take maybe, and these acorns are pretty small, you can see that. You know, and blue jay will cram, they can probably fit 5 or 6 of these small acorns into their gular pouch, and then they'll fly away, and then they will cache them or stash them. And that's one of the ways that they keep, that's how they survive the winter. So there's a lot of blue jays that we're hearing in the woods. Let me look in my basket here. I brought some other show and tell things. I was really hoping, because the Menominee River it's pretty pristine, especially in terms of our Northern Illinois standards. You know, we're pretty suburbanized and urbanized in Kane County, and the Fox River has a lot of impacts to it. It still has a pretty good selection of freshwater mussels, but up here, there are just dozens of different kinds that live in the water. And I was really hoping that I was going to be able to, you know, crawl around out there in the Menominee and bring in some examples. I wouldn't bring the live shells, but I could bring some of the open species specimens. But it was just too dangerous. The whole current is super strong, and the water is really deep. So I looked around the cabin, and sure enough, somebody had picked one up. This is a mussel that's called a 3-ridge. We do have this down in the Fox River as well. If I hold it here in the light, you can see, look at that, 1, 2, 3. It's got 3 ridges on its shell. And inside, I've only got the one, the 2 sides of a freshwater mussel called the valves. I've only got 1 valve here. But you can see the white nacre on the inside. These are a creature that has been used, well, animals still feed on them quite a bit, but this was an animal that was very important to the native people that used to live here, because these, not only could they eat the meat on the inside of the shell, but then they had the shell itself. And a 3-ridge shell it's pretty thick, it's pretty strong. It makes a great carrying case. So if you happen to have both sides of the shell, both valves, you've got yourself a extra pocket or a purse, something that you can carry. You could pack it with maple sugar. You could pack it with beads. You could use it to carry lots of different things. So like I said, yeah, I was really hoping to show you some of the diversity there. There's some shells up here that would be considered threatened or endangered species in Illinois that are just, you know, common up here. But that's going to have to wait till our next trip when I can show you some more. Now, so I'm going to go next. Where the Menominee River is, there's a couple things going on, and this might be good. Some of you could maybe check this out after the program. I've been able to learn a little bit about it online, but there there's a mining company that has come down from Canada, and they're very interested in some of the resources that are down beneath the river and the banks. The mine, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Aquila Mine Company, it's Aquila, and it's a Canadian mining interest. And mining, it's a kind of a two-pronged venture. There's the mining company itself and its interests in this case, they're looking at zinc, they're looking at gold that's below the surface. There's a lot of money to be made with those materials, and it's going to bring jobs to the area, and that can be very good because the UP's had a lot of industry come and go. The copper mines that were here and went, the iron mines that were here and then closed, the logging industries that have come and gone. So there is certainly a need to create jobs here. But then there's the environmental impact of creating those jobs, and how long will those impacts last once all the resources have been removed. And the mining company promises to put everything back the way they found it, but sometimes that doesn't always happen. So there's a lot of concern. In fact, I've been seeing a lot of billboards that say don't undermine the Menominee River. So there's definitely two factions up here. And I just talked to a woman this morning. They've lived on the river now for 27 years. And she's hoping that, the mining doesn't progress. And she said, actually, what's helping right now is, of all things, COVID. She said the Canadian border is closed. So there's not as much traffic. The Canadians that are operating the mine aren't able to travel as freely as they would be if there weren't any traveling restrictions. So that's kind of a wait and see thing. But Aquila mine, it's called the Back 40 mine. So you can maybe look that up too and judge for yourself what the best decision is, whether it's bringing jobs and mining the resources, or whether it's trying to save the quality of the Menominee River and its surrounding environments. So talking about the things that live in the river, we talked about the mussels, and mussels do need a really, they need pretty clean water, and they need water that doesn't have a lot of sediment, because if you have a lot of influx of silt, they're going to get buried. They're not going to be able to get out of the way, and they're going to basically suffocate there at the bottom of the river. The other thing with mussels is they're filter feeders, so they're bringing food in and blowing waste out, so they suck the water in. If they're sucking in a lot of toxic materials, they're not going to survive either. So again, knowing that we've got a lot of thriving mussel beds in the Menominee is a sign of a really good quality of water. It's on my wish list for the week. I don't know if I'm going to make it because of because of the high water, but one of my cousins did spot 3 otters along the river this summer. They'll feed on things like this. And I'm thinking that with the water, the current water being as high as it is and the current being as strong as it is, that harvesting things like this is going to be kind of difficult for those otters to take. So if I get a picture of an otter, I'll be sure and show it to you guys next week. But I mentioned, that we saw these guys fishing up at the, we call it, the name of it is White Rapids. It's a power dam that's about 5 miles north of the cabin on the Menominee. Well, one of these guys had this big old pole, and he said that he was fishing for sturgeon. So sturgeon they're a crazy looking prehistoric fish. A baby sturgeon is, about this big. A full-grown sturgeon, I believe the minimum size for keeping what you catch is 6 feet. That's a big fish. And I remember my cousins and I one year, we caught a number of small sturgeon, and it's still a fun fish to catch. These were close to 3 feet. And of course, we had to put them back because they weren't big enough to keep. But there is a pretty healthy sturgeon population in the Menominee River, and this gentleman was trying his luck the other day. It reminded me of one of the local backwoods characters. Well, actually, he wasn't backwoods. He just happened to live in the woods. Very modern guy named Dave Charlin. Dave was the kind of guy that he dated a woman for 20 years before they got married, and they never could come to terms on living in Dave's Northwoods house. She always kept her house in Escanaba, which is the bigger town over on Lake Michigan. And Dave was just a really, he really seemed to thrive in that Northwoods environment, although he did, he had a job that he went to every day over in Pembine, Wisconsin. But he would take advantage. He was a fly fisherman. He loved, putting a line in just about every day. He'd go out fishing, and he would take advantage of sturgeon season. And I remember seeing this hanging at Dave's house. Dave, unfortunately, isn't with us anymore. But I was sitting in the cabin, and I actually asked my cousin. I go, "Is that Dave's sturgeon tail?" Dave's the kind of guy that, rather than mount the head or mount the whole fish, he just mounted the tail of the sturgeon that he caught. This thing is, it's, what is it, 8-10 inches long, just the tail. This was a big fish. But sturgeon are, I'm wishing I had a photo I could show you. We'll have to take care of that during another session as well. But the sturgeon are very much a part of the culture up here. There's a lot of people every year, they want to try and see if they can catch themselves a sturgeon. I know I may try my luck this week. The other fish that's pretty prevalent throughout the river is the smallmouth bass. Now, again, Fox River, we do have smallmouth there. We've got a pretty good smallmouth population, one that might actually compete with the smallmouth up here in the Menominee. I noticed there was a sign when we were up at the power dam that there's a smallmouth bass alliance up here as well, and they were tagging. It was a study that was done last year. I would imagine there's still some tagged fish in the river, but they were offering a prize for anyone who might be able to to catch and then report the number of the smallmouth bass that they caught. When we talk about managing fish populations, it's always struck me kind of funny, like, when we said the minimum size for a sturgeon is 6 feet. With smallmouth bass, I can't say for sure what the Michigan regulations are, but I believe in our area, it's 12 inches is the minimum size. So anything smaller than that, you have to throw back. And at first you think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You want to give the little ones a chance to grow bigger. But when you think about the health of a fish population, and you think about all the perils that a young fish faces, it takes quite a bit of doing to reach that breeding size, which is, they have to be around several years before they reach that size. And those are really the fish you want to conserve because they have made it that far, and you want them to be able to pass those genes along. You don't necessarily want to remove them from the population just because they got big. You kind of want to save those big ones. And it's just always kind of struck me as funny that instead of letting people keep the small ones, they insist on having us throw them back, and they only want us to keep the big ones, which are the ones that are the proven breeders. But I suppose the argument could be made that, some of those small ones are going to grow up, and if we deplete that population, then we won't have any big ones either. But I don't know, it was just sort of a quirk. I remember talking to a fisheries biologist about it. He felt the same way, that it just didn't make any sense to be pulling those big fish that they have what it takes to survive and removing them and their genes from the population. You know, I'm going to see here, my photos have been updating. I'm going to see if I can share a screen here. We're going to go and we're going to hop onto my Google Photos to see if we can, I can show you a couple other things that I have been observing while we were out here. Let's go over here. Oh, no, you know what? They're still updating. Oh, here. So here's one of the, this is when we were talking about the mine, this is what we're seeing along the roads as you get close to the Menominee. These are some terms, if you investigate this mining situation yourself, you can go ahead and look up the Front 40 environmental fight, because again, the mine is called the Back 40 mine. Let's see, that, yep, see the other ones have not updated. Let me see if we can, I'll stop the share. Give it another minute, see if any of those come back. I can also try and pull them up here on my phone. But you know, traveling up here, one of the things I've always enjoyed about going to the UP is it's kind of like a step back in time. And there's a lot of things here that just don't change. One of the things is the local park. I'm going to stop this here. Oh, there's my cousin. So can you see what's on my phone here? I'm going to play this video. You see that the park is a giant metal slide.
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you see that, Silvana? It is, it's like the old metal slide.
Yeah, yeah, I see the metal slide.
Isn't that awesome? And the swings have metal chains. It's just, you know, all kinds of hazards waiting to happen. And you know what? Everybody seems to be doing just fine with it. I wanted to make a video of sliding down the slide, but it was too wet because it's still raining. But one of these days, maybe later this week, I'll be able to take it.
And don't try those on the hot days because they burn. Personal experience.
Safety tips from Silvana. Thanks, Silvana. Well, actually, you know what? Here, let's see if I can show this. So this, I can get the angle on this right. Yeah, we're getting a glare on the screen. I'm sorry, guys. It's not showing quite the way I'd like it to. But the river, it's just so full right now. It's you can kind of get a glimpse there. We're getting the start of the fall colors. But the banks, normally you can walk up to the water, you know, on the rocks, but the rocks are all underwater. There's a certain rock in the river that I've, you know, gone down and sat on for, gosh, every year that I've come up here. It's just, you sit on the rock, you get a great view of things in the water, things across the river. That rock is underwater, and it's a good size hunk of granite. I kind of wonder, you know, how the animals that depend on the river, how they're adapting to this high water, because the way I understand it, it's continued now for several weeks. And let's see, I've got this little frog here. It's a little green frog, and he's washed. I don't know if you can see him there. No, see, I'm getting a weird glare. I won't even try to share from my phone. So, you know, these frogs, for one, they're getting close to the end of their season. Frogs go into an inactive state. They'll try to get under the mud and the muck. They want to stay below where the water freezes, because if they freeze, these types of frogs, which were green frogs, they wouldn't be able to survive a freeze of their body. Some other types of frogs, some of our early spring frogs like wood frogs, they actually can withstand freezing. Their body makes like an antifreeze. But these green frogs, they have the stress of having to prepare for a long winter with no food. And now they've got this high water condition, and I just wonder how that's how they're faring with that. If they're able to find secluded backwater areas to get out of the main current, or if they're kind of struggling with things. Shoot, yeah. The other thing I wanted to show you was just the way the roads are. We were walking down a county road today, and not a soul. I mean, no cars, no other people. I had both my dogs with me. Well, two of my three dogs. One dog I left at my mom's house because I knew she's not a Northwoods kind of girl. But Joey, my older cattle dog, and then a little tech support puppy, Boker, came along, and didn't have them on leashes. They're good dogs about staying by me. I didn't have to worry about them running off, but also didn't have to worry about them getting run over because, again, the deer outnumber the cars, which is just fabulous. I hope you guys, that are listening, if you have a chance to get up this way, take it. It's really a paradise, a heaven on earth. With that, I think what I'll do is stop this year because the pictures I wanted to show you just aren't going to happen tonight. I'm going to open this up and see, does anybody have any questions for tonight?
I actually do.
Oh yeah, hey Savannah.
Well, I'm listening to what you were saying about the river levels.
Yes.
And it was something that I was thinking last year when I was up north too. I got to go to a couple little lakes, and they also have really, really high water levels.
Yeah.
And what is causing so much of the beaches being eroded or gone because there's so much water? And where all this water coming from?
Well, I think it's just there's the weather patterns have just been rainier. My understanding is that they just had so much rain up here, which is so bizarre when you consider how dry things have been out west. And Silvana, I remember being up up in Door County. This was, let's see, this would have been like the late 90s or early 2000s. And that time the concern, there were boats that they weren't dry docked on purpose. They were just stranded on the rocks because the Lake Michigan water levels were so low. And at the time, we were visiting up there from Illinois, and knowing that Chicago relies, and a lot of suburbs rely on Lake Michigan for their drinking water, they didn't really view Illinoisans all that kindly because they looked at us as drawing down their lake water levels. Well, now, of course, all that has changed. I think it's just because of increased rainwater or rainfall that is causing all these lakes to kind of replenish, and we're seeing it in all the surface waters, and just in this part of the country. Though there's certainly lots of other parts that are undergoing droughts, but like this power dam, and doggone, I wish I could show you the video. I had this awesome video showing how the water is surging over the gates at the power dam. They have all the gates are open. Sometimes they'll close the gates to conserve water upstream. But the way the water is crashing over this dam, it was then surging up and splashing, I would say 15 or 20 feet in the air. Really dramatic footage that I was hoping I'd be able to show you. But again, I'll have to wait till I get back. But I believe it's just the increased rainfall over there. And like today, I thought it was going to be dry, and I got super wet again when I went out. So I'm glad I brought a lot of clothes so I can dry the wet ones and keep dry ones handy. Any other questions for tonight?
Hey Pam, I had a question about ravens and
Yeah.
their whether or not they are found together, like if they're found in the same spaces, and if they're if they're not here, are they extirpated from northern Illinois, or like do they share the same space as crows? I guess is my
It's
point
okay.
or my
That's a good
question.
question. No, it is. And yes, there's both crows and ravens up here. And the history of ravens in Illinois, I was reading about them. I found a neat old, it was a publication from about 100 years ago. And there were some ravens in Western Illinois at the time. I don't know if they were ever in the Chicago area. I know they're not right now because when those ravens were spotted over in northern Indiana, there was quite a stir. A lot of people made the trek over to see the ravens there because it was so unusual to see them that close to Chicago. But up north, they're doing well. Out west, they're doing well. I remember seeing them. They were just all over the place. When I was in Glacier National Park, and there were crows there as well. Now there's different types of crows as you go around the country. Up here, I believe it's the American crow that's cohabitating with the raven. I think they have slightly different niches that they fulfill. The raven's a bigger bird. I know it has different nesting requirements. I don't know, like the crow, crows, and a lot of people when they look at crows, they're like, oh, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they have this reputation for stealing baby birds from nests, which by the way a lot of birds do that, and squirrels do too. But the crows are very well, actually, ravens and crows both are highly intelligent birds. Crows have a really close network of family. Oftentimes when a pair will raise a brood, some of those birds will stick around to help raise subsequent broods. They're kind of like mom and dad's helpers. With ravens, I'm not sure if they have that close. I know the pair bond is strong with ravens, but I don't know if they have the extended family network that the crows do. I think when you see ravens, I've been seeing 1 and 2s, and when I see crows up here, I'll see like 3s and 4s. Now, they are both, they've got pretty broad diets. They eat both plant material and animal material. So from that point of view, they fulfill similar roles. The raven, I think, though, is a little bit more particular, and the crow is a little bit more of a generalist in terms of how they go about their day-to-day life. Does that kind of answer your question?
I think so. It at least piqued my curiosity to look into it further.
Well, and one of the pictures I got of a woman, it was actually out in Sycamore. This woman swore up and down that there was a raven on her shopping cart, the shopping cart that she got from the outside stall. She said this bird was absolutely enormous, but when she sent the picture, it lacked the strong knob on top of the bill, and it was a big bird, there was no doubt, but it was also a really cold day, and the bird was puffed up, and it was a crow. It just looked pretty large. But it not to say they couldn't occur in Chicago, in the Chicago region, but they're not known to be there now. And historically, I know there were some in Western Illinois. I'm not so sure they were around the Chicago area. Anybody else? All right, well, if not, I thank you for your patience. So we had a little bit of connectivity trouble when we started. But when we get together again, hopefully you'll be able to join us again next week. I will be able to better show some of these videos that we took today, so you can get an idea of just how truly gorgeous it is up here. And again, hope you all get a chance to travel up north sometime soon. With that, I'll say good night, and I'll see you back in Illinois next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. Looking forward to hearing about your trip.
All right.
Seeing more pictures.
Yeah, we'll compare notes.
Thanks,
Savannah.
Pam.
All right. Bye-bye, honey. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
See you soon. You know what time it is.